The XPR-50 is the last sniper rifle you unlock in Black Ops 2 at level 52. It is a semi-automatic rifle which is more forgiving to missing with a shot than the bolt-action sniper rifles. However, the slow handling characteristics and long aim-down sight time of the XPR-50 mean that the rifle has to be used more passively in a defensive position. But don't stay in the same place for long. Frequently change position to a new location that overlooks a high traffic area or a choke point. When you are changing position, pull out your secondary, as it is much better at close quarter engagements than the XPR-50. But such fires should be avoided since most secondaries are inferior to the primary weapon suited to close range engagements. Maneuver the map so that you are unlikely to run into enemies towards positions where you have cover and be ready for enemies out in the open. The suppressor is of limited use on the XPR-50, as keeping off the radar is only important if you are close to enemies. However, the reduced nozzle flash is somewhat useful as it makes it harder for enemies to see where you are shooting from. On most long-range sniper rifles, the ballistic CPU isn't that useful since the weapon's sway isn't significant enough to make it hard to keep an eye on a specific location. When you see an enemy, you can simply hold your breath, and the XPR-50 won't have any sway at all. The zoom attachment gives you 2 magnification levels. I didn't have any trouble identifying and shooting enemies even at the longest range with the standard scope. But if you have trouble with the long sightlines, I suggest you use the zoom attachment instead of the extended clip attachment for the KAP-50 in the final build. Since the XPR-50 is best used further away from the enemies behind cover, reload times aren't an issue, so the fast mag attachment is of limited use. When the XPR-50 runs dry, duck down and reload, and there isn't much the enemies can do to stop you. I didn't notice a significant difference when I was using the FMJ attachment. In Black Ops 2, either it is easy enough to shoot through cover that FMJ isn't needed, or cover is so resistant that FMJ doesn't help. Either way, it is always better to shoot over cover than through it. The Acog Scope is a closer range alternative to the standard scope of the XPR-50. With it you can use the XPR-50 similar to the slower fire rate assault rifle, but the high recoil makes it difficult to pull off reliably. The laser sight attachment is fun to use, but out of place on the XPR-50. The dual band scope makes it easier to identify enemies, but is vulnerable to enemies using cold-blooded, which makes it tough to see them in the scope. Also, if you are hit with an EMP, all indication of where the shot will go is removed. But if you have trouble identifying targets, substitute the dual band scope for the extended clip attachment for the KAP-40 in the final build. The attachment I found most beneficial to the XPR-50 is the extended clip attachment. It grants more bullets per magazine, which lets you fend off more enemies without having to reload. It also increases the tolerance to missing a few shots, as you have plenty more. The class setup is strongly focused around being able to stay in a defensive position for longer. Using blind eye will stop enemy AI controlled air support from targeting you, so that you can easily take them out with the Black Hat equipment. Tactical masks stop enemy tactical grenades from disabling you, which enemies will try frequently. Toughness prevents flinch to cause you to lose gunfights. Use the bouncing Betty to protect your back. When you hear it going off, or that it has been destroyed, always pull out your secondary and go to investigate. The secondary I found most useful was the KAP-40, since it is automatic with a high fire rate and does good where the XPR-50 isn't. So, there you go, that's the class setup that I recommend for the XPR-50. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time.